Servus, kann man wahr? Guten Abend. Wir machen heute weiter mit dem Kampf. Sugiro versus Aoko. Silent as the dead, it stepped into the romance of a dream that had long since seen no visitors. There was no wind this night, nor a soul to be seen. Still, it heard the echoes from within, clapped its hands together, and grind. Its form, with hands clasped, resembled that of a budding tulip. The bearing of this artificial flower reflected the cloudy mirror of the ticket attendants office next to the gate. Next to it stood a display board, corrodored by years upon years of rust. No visitors today. Number of visitors today, 2. Number of today. The board had graffiti cradle scrolled on top of the words. It was replaced with deaths. The records board had long ago fallen to disrepair. After taking a full 10 seconds to digest what was looking at it, as it made its own revision. Number of visitors today, 3. Number of deaths today, 1. After pinning this number with an index finger, she smiled like a flower. Then she began to walk toward the source of the sound. It had been 10 minutes since the Raspodi... Was heißt das nicht Raspodi? Das höre ich die letzte Zeit so oft. Es tut mir leid, dass ich das nachgoogeln muss. Die Rasputi. Okay. Dann das Podi definition. An effusively enthusiastic or ecstatic. Ah, okay. Verstehe. A for House of Mirrors. The amusement park's entrance returned to it as was before. Soulless. In the end, it doesn't even matter. Even if Sushiro had been the luckiest man alive, there was no way he should have been able to escape. The question was, however, how much of this was by design, and how much was sheer coincidence. Even Oko, who made all the arrangements, had no answer. Indeed, there was only 3 things she could say. It was taking longer than expected. He was putting up more for resistance than she had anticipated. And that choosing the House of Mirrors was a mistake. She had really screwed the pooch on this one. The location itself was an excellent choice, as House of Mirrors was perfect as hunting ground, but seeing her own incompetence reflected in the mirrors was beginning to grate on her. Geil. The moment Aoko's right eye began to glow, Sushiro made his beeline for the staircase in front of him. A strong series of blue flashes lit the room behind him. The hunter calmly fought her prey, and her prey desperately ran for his life upstairs. Exactly, so she was Francis' escape. Akiko walked briskly up the stairs. She elected not to run after the prey in order to maintain a set distance. She lacked confidence in her accuracy. The hardest thing for her to deal with would be if he charged right at her and went down fighting. But a distance of 30 or so feet, he posed no threat. By the time her prey drew near, she could fire 10 shots at him with at least 4 of them. The positioning just a moment ago had been ideal. At the distance in the space and open, if he flanked and rushed her, there was a chance, however small, that it could turn into a fist fight. Kudako's best weapon was bullets from her right arm. If she was going to capitalize on the advantage, it was in her best interest not to close the gap between them. If it was a good time to approach, there was only after her prey had become exhausted and had lost the will to continue. Would she pierce his leg, shoot him in the back? Or perhaps would he just give up after losing himself in the labyrinth? The hunter would end when a target sustained some sort of injury and became unable to run. Also true, and he could barely bite back on screaming as he bolted through the maze. Even running a straight line had become difficult, much less searching for an exit. The corridor stretched out far beyond him, also the mirrors blocking the path that made it seem. Panic made a turn to the right. Clutching his head in his right arm, was a led with his left groping through the air to see if a wall was there or not. He dove down the hall of the left, nearly dashing the bullet aside, taking his life. Urged by the sight of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. That last one was close, a hair closer, and would have meant his life. Ich muss sagen, ich wäre wahrscheinlich schon so oft gegen den Spiegel gelaufen, ich wäre ohnmächtig geworden. He caught the odor of burnt hair from the back of his neck. He was very lucky, or perhaps very unlucky. Je nachdem wie man sieht. If he were actually lucky, he would not be in this situation in the first place. The second floor in the house mirrors was structured like a giant spiral. It would left starting from the outside wall. Eventually it would lead to a dead end. The more he tried to escape, the more concerned he would become, and so he was trapped in a twisted guillotine. He still fired screams, threatened to leak out as the compliments. No matter what he did, he was going to be killed. After all his struggling merely served to prolong the inevitable. Yet he ran. No matter how many mirrors but walls he rammed himself, he ran. Even after crushing so hard that his forehead bled and he saw stars, he ran. Pain shot through him at every turn. The more frantically he ran, the more intensely he smashed into the invisible walls. His body began to understand this rule and begged him not to run anymore. His breath was already wrecked after sprinting a couple hundred feet. No matter how he thought about it, it was not normal that this was too crazy. It was just all a bad joke. If he turned around now, she would apologize for him for taking it so far. His mind had gone blank. His body continued to slam the mirrors again and again, and his feet slowed as they began to believe that perhaps it really was all a joke. But then he felt a chill, a touch of death upon his neck. It won't be an exaggeration to say that Tsuchiru knew this kind of terrible chill far too well. Ever since he had arrived in the city, he had come face to face with more than one or two near-death experiences. For someone who did not understand city life, his present predicament was not unlike when he experienced the traffic on the street or the commuter rush on the station platform. It was far from an innocent babe, unable to comprehend life or fear. Rather, everything he had ever known became irrelevant when he was flung into a completely different cultural sphere. Even society's promises of safety, something urbanites took for granted, were threats unknown. So he was used to this already. Though, if he was honest, he was dissatisfied with some things. Things so flourished in the city. This world was overflowed with valueless things, and they were all dangerous in some way. Even the everyday necessities, so that convenience stores were, as far as he was concerned, amazing tools. Civilization had raised the standard for living so high that it had numbed humanity's sense of danger. The city's constant pursuit of wealth and convenience was a poison to a country boy like Soshiro. And he did not have the capacity of accept these conveniences. It was possible for such conveniences to easily and suddenly be misused because unintended accidents had always made him anxious. Why? He had to wonder why he was even here. Ah! How ironic. It took the real threat of death to finally make him realize, like a divine revelation, he would fail to understand until now. He would always have to expect the unexpected. Near-death experiences were more common than one might think. To begin with, safety was something that came at a price. Being alive meant that the other side was always lurking around the corner. It was just like a street light at night. When the sun rose, the relation would naturally disappear. Another burst of strange protection whizzed mercilessly by him. He recalled the back of his mind that the charge remained among the hands of the blue flame 2 nights prior. Some of the situation reminded him of a horse being led by a dangling carrot. For now he lifted his head and continued to run through the labyrinth. But for what purpose? He knew the pain in his chest was very real. He felt disconnected from it. The night sky visible through the skylight was muddy Ottoman, no longer resembling the one he knew. Ha! And he managed to calm himself, so she began to laugh in despair as though something of her pressures had been broken. Everything had become meaningless anyway. Even those legs somehow made their way toward the side of her reflection in the mirror. Like a game of cat and mouse, Soshiro fled from the labyrinth of mirrors. Then, after 4 minutes, that strangely unreal tension ended. The knife of blue light had shot inches away from him. It exploded just a moment with impact, launching Soshiro into the opposite wall. Of all the fire he had taken thus far, this should indestructibly brought him to the closest to death. Groaning, he collapsed to the floor. His back was on fire with pain. He was not bleeding, and was lucky he could still even scream. Yet his body refused to move. Physically and mentally, he still had something to spare. The pain was not so bad, he was preventing him to stand up. It was just that there was a skylight above him. He could glimpse the dark of the night sky beyond. The feeling that overcame him was a raw selfish bout of grief. It was just so cruel. Just to stare dead for the remainder of whatever short life he had left. So Soshio's wrecked beneath slowed. For all it has a purpose, he had given up. He had all given up running away from the sound of pursuing footsteps, and perhaps the problem, the root of everything. Mann? So Shizuki felt things in other work success he would never feel. Incidentally, without exploration as embellishment, this was the only mistake he'd ever made in his entire life. So vacantly into the night sky above, so she listened as the footsteps drew nearer. It was the closest her voice had ever been to him. Perhaps thinking that he really had given up, she approached his collapsed form. In the dark mirror line corridor he could not make out her expression. With other words, Soshiro raised his eyes to meet his murderer.
返事がないならそれでいいけど。調子狂うわ。普通どうして殺そうとするのかぐらい聞くものじゃない？
August spoke from within the shadows. His eyes widened by bewilderment. Now that she had mentioned, he realized that would have been the obvious question to ask. He had more or less picked up on the fact that he was being killed for learning some secret, but it was human nature to want to know more. A simple affirmation. His face was a mixture of resignation and a forlorn longing. He thought for a moment before. He responded in a mature, subdued voice. His response was clear, rather gallantly so.
そう。じゃ、殺すけど。死ぬの怖くないの？怖いに決まってる。何より痛そうだ。
His face turned to worry. Why? As the objected, to which Oko frowned. As nonchalant as he could be, he was honest about his feelings.
そりゃ怖いでしょ。私だって怖いと思うし。でも悪いわね。我慢して。人でなしと罵ってくれて結構よ。今の私は本当にその通りだから。そういった意味じゃあんたと同じ。普通の道徳がないのよ。だから必要なら人も殺せる。
Das stimmt. Sochiros finger twitched in response to a different tone. As if to say that despite having given up on just about everything, his body could not let those words slide.
人殺しなんて良くないぞ。分かってるって言ってるでしょ。
Oko raised her right hand. The light from the crest illuminated her face. It goes without saying that her expression was unchanged. She was not crying, nor was she smiling. She was a young woman who had exercised her feelings. Deal with it was another thing Soshiro could not let slide. Soshiro could read on Asuru's face that she was not herself, she was in pain, and to a degree he had never seen in her.
すまない。ちょっといいかな。何？ここまで悲壮感を盛り上げておいて、やっぱり逃げるなんてのは却下よ。
His unconscious smothered Oko's helpless counter and breathed a sigh of relief. He had misread the pain he saw in her face. This was the same Oko. Soshiro laughed out loud in a shining joy, a laugh that most other people would have taken as an insult.
遺言でも聞いてあげようと思った私が甘かった。っていうか、今の小バカにした笑いがあんたの遺言ってことで OK？ いや、そうじゃなくて、あそこにいる人は青崎の友人なのか？
Out of nowhere, Soshiro pointed behind Oko.
はぁ
Oko thought this must have been that old, overused distraction technique. If this had been a Japanese comedy act, this would be the part where she gave him a whack with a paper fan, but after giving it a second thought, she realized that she didn't have the capacity for understanding old or even new tricks.
あんた、何言って。
Perhaps his honest disposition had been to his benefit. Without thinking, Oko gave into her curiosity and turned her gaze toward the direction which his finger was pointed. And there, something that should not have been there, in a maze, something with a creaky wooden smile. It was ominous, creepy, uncanny figure of a girl. Yup. An unusual figure with 2 arms and 2 legs stood silently in the darkness, with the only moment its beauty which was even apparent from afar, dialed the insanity of the current situation. Extend. The utterly unknown threat made the Oko freeze on the spot. Avoiding it didn't even occur to her. Humans possess intelligence and knowledge, but even confronted with the unknown, they fail to process what to do and... Ich mag diesen Shot. Echt, ich mag diesen Shot. Er schrieg escaped auch kurz mal auf. Weil ich glaube, das ist derselbe Shot wie Stun-Pick vom der Stun-Skill in FGO. Er schrieg escaped auch kurz mal auf. The measure attack crossed the 30-foot gap in an instant. The arm of a girl who had been appeared in the rear of the corridor was slender and quick. It extended to a near impossible length, striking Oko from behind. Oko crashed towards her. She fought back in an anguished whimper. The attacker retracted her arm, so she sprang to his feet. He dived to her side and used all the strength she could muster to get her to her feet. He couldn't believe how light she was. In Sushi's mind, Oko was actually individual. He would have expected that if he were to ever touch her, it would apparently she was far stronger than he. But in reality, she felt about as heavy as you would expect a 100-pound girl to feel. Meanwhile, that thing continued to reel its arm as if it was some sort of mechanism. Having extended more than 30 feet from the elbow point, it clanked as it returned its previous shape and size. Oko tore her hand away from Sojiro's, and suddenly she felt her knees buckled from under her feet when Soji caught her before she could hit the ground and helped her to her feet. He looked back at the eerie shadow 30 feet away as it finished retracing its arm. Oko grabbed her lower back as she answered. A searing pain shot through her. I could try to steady her breath as she assessed the damage done to her back. The pain was quick to fade and her breath returned to normal. For the time being, her motor functions were no longer hindered, but she meant the real damage was elsewhere. Blue light glowed across the gloom. The magical energy generated by her breathing was accumulating in her right arm. If magical energy was the fuel, the formula was ignite her. For Oko was the little more than a reenactment of 2 evenings ago. Next, the puppet extended its arm. Oko would fire magic bullet as fast as she could. A battle approximately 30 feet. As long as Oko could secure a 2-second window, she would create a counterattack to end the duel. It made its move. With its head tilted down, there was no special scene. In the darkness, it appeared age was impossible to make out. The two of the humans, the puppet was not dissimilar to a faceless ghost. His left arm slowly came up, grinding sound. Das schaut doch stark wie Oko aus. Its movement went dull, as if the joints were so rusty. The right arm, which had been extended earlier, hung at its side, though the puppet's mouth was hidden by its long socks The sense was that it was smiling.
さっきと用途が違う。あれが本命。しずきくん、どいて。
She threw herself to Tsuchiro's and extended her hand. His arm extended at the very moment. The timing was impeccable. As a single second, a smashed bullet scored a direct hit on the puppet's arm, reversing its trajectory and sending it crashing into the puppet's body with a violent explosion. Or at least that's what would have happened had the magic phone not been invoked. She better avoiding being struck once again. When her mage just failed, her intuition took over and she just managed to get her away. War klar, dass ich mal nicht einsetzen kann wegen dem Ding. She clenched her teeth in frustration, her thoughts racing a mile in a minute. Fight or flight. It only had one arm left, which could take time to retract. It was the best shot Oko had to defeating it. If she could have made his right arm, just a fraction she could get close enough to. Latein. In slumber I live. In dire I rot alone. Today is the day I died and was born. I come to you. A crackle echoed through the corridor. The poetic murmurs contained enough magical energy for a mage to perceive. The verse itself was Latin, but it contained hints of the language of curses. Gandir. Actually, they were words meant to curse a hated adversary. However, my life is immortal, though my future was destroyed. I am a ghost. The definition of life is eternal. I hate you. I love you. Let us meet in a dream. The puppet was directing the verse at itself. Curses backed curses. The victim calls down a curse on the silent, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. The incantation was meant to just do that. However, this would ultimately a one puppet show. An unpredicted source of power akin to auto-intoxication. As unbelievable as it seems, the cycle of curses had been turned into a purported motion device. Oko bobbed the idea of digging her heels in. It was time to flee, with all due to haste. She goes through her hand and ran as fast as she could, deep into the realm of mirrors. Cracking voice continued as murmuring behind them. Omnes nos peccantes fuims, et omnes nos eidem fuims, omnes nos peccatores sums. Venit domum meum, lut simul sum meum, et pulvere simul quotidianum, corrupere. My neighbors distracted me. Not an innocent among us. We are all sinners. We are all sinners. Welcome to my house. My way. Maybe die a muddy death, from dust to dust. Gouge out my heart. Death be upon you. Oko fought against the pain in her back as she ran through the mirrored corridor. She dragged Tsuchiro by the hand. She cursed inwardly at how much of a mess she felt there. And as usual, Oko did not run into any transparent walls. Thanks to the superior sight, but never prepared, she hammered the layer of the building into her memory.
わかるのか。
そりゃ自分の体だもの。身体管理は基礎中の基礎よ。
Oko's a bit of fact answer contrasted to Chiyo's nervous questioning. The corridor grew shorter with each and every left turn. At first, they were able to advance in a straight line for about 100 feet at a time, but now they were forced to turn corner every 50 feet or so.
あいつはあの夜の。
多分ね。同じタイプだと思う。貴重なオートマタを惜しげもなく使い捨てるなんて。
She frowned his brows. It was regretfully that she was answering his questions, but baffled by the strange words she was using.
青崎ストップ。もう随分走ったぞ。あいつは曲がり角一つ分向こうだ。少し休もう。
So she suggested that she was still concerned about the injuries. Oko shook her head in irritation.
あの距離を狙ってくる相手に通路一つ分のリードは無意味よ。せめて二つ分に行くまで走るの。
So she nodded. With that better settled, he
なん
asked,
で俺を連れて行ってるんだ。
逃げられたくないからじゃない、バカ。
asking curtly, Oko glared at her naive prey. The two of them headed to the next corner, their legs behind the slow as they rounded one more. Oko rubbed her back as she tried to catch her breath. Though Oko had insisted she was fine, it appeared to have been a bravado. Even the usually clueless Sojiro felt the desperation they were in. He stood by Oko's arm with his feet. His arms folded, the feet. Right at the moment, he tried to make sense of everything. First, Oko nearly killed him. He was saved at least possible second. It was by a strange, stretchy woman Oko had burned to ashes 2 nights prior. He could barely make it out that night, but he considered it a her because it looked female. The woman's attack wounded Oko's back and forced her to flee. Oko attacked Sojiro with her, claiming that the reason she did so was to prevent her prey from escaping. In other words,
青崎はまだ諦めてないんだな。
当たり前よ。あんなやつ仮に2体と半分始末してもあんた用の余力は残せるわ。
her tongue was sharp, but Sojiro could see that she was struggling to stay confident. The damage to her body was too much to afford her any optimism. Still, the fury in her eyes refused to accept the circumstances.
中がところどころショートしてる。あの右腕は回路を混戦させるジャミングってわけね。
Though the proper response would have been for her to tremble in fear, she did nothing but shake her fist in danger. The disruption of formula was only supposed to work on absolute beginners. If it had been her roommate, the arm would have been repelled the instant it hit her. The attacker's circus burned out rather than her own. Attempt to especially link to the magic circus of another mage was like presenting your heart on a silver platter. It would be of no use in a battle against a superior mage. And yet the adversary had been designed to do just that. Coupled with the attacks on the areas of Misaki and Aoka's jurisdiction these last few weeks, it was clear statement from the enemy who was of 2 days ago had revealed itself as a fellow mage. In other words, the puppet saw Aoko as no threat at all.
敵ながら正確な判断だこと。
But was still angry, the whirlwind of emotions within her started to fade. Her face was that of a hunter, far beyond her years. Ich habe die Vermutung, dass Sojiro reingelegt wurde und in den Park gelockt wurde, aber na gut, das könnte auch ein bisschen zu Überinterpretation sein.
なんか俺の時より真剣だ。
ね。あんたの時は遊びが入ってたし。
She was not sure whether to be happy or sad at that.
わからないことだらけで何を聞いていいかわからないんだけど、一つだけいいか。
Looking to the response, her eyes were focused on the darkness before them. The sight was heavy and the darkness was like a noose closing in on them. But Sushi continued despite of her indifference.
青崎はあいつも殺すのか。
A silence fell over them. It was the gloom was pulling them in. No response. Their breathing was only to be sound echoing in the dim corridor. There stood Soichiro, forcing her to confront her sense and the magician girl who continued to ignore him. They spent a few seconds seemingly frozen in time.
それがあなたのキーワードみたいね。
Oko whispered in a lifeless tone. The sight was tinged with both resignation and contempt.
何？
独り言よ、忘れて。それと言っとくけど、あいつは人間じゃないわ。信じられないだろうけど、自分の意志で動く人形なの。この前のも今のやつもね。
Soichiro nodded as he proceeds the information. Not only did he not doubt the story, but he seems to have accepted it at face value.
なんか落ち着いてるわね、あなた。
まさかもう何が何だかわからないからあまり考えないことにしてるだけだ。ただ人形に関しては別にどうということはない。
え、もしかして他でも自動人形を見たことあるとか？
ん？都会の人形ってああいうものじゃないのか
She barely stopped herself from falling to her knees. Of course, how could she have forgotten? She was dealing with a bona fide natural-born moron. As a student who transferred from the isolation of the mountains like an endangered species, his utter lack of common sense rendering anything miraculous. If automobiles were moving hunks of metal, the moving puppets were nothing to write home about. But that meant to him the incident from the other night had been extraordinary at all. He might have even assumed it was an every new occurrence in the city.
参った。いっぺん頭の中覗いてみたいっていうか、ほんとここまで来ると感心するわ。調子が狂うのも当然だった。普通は私に襲われた時点でもっと違う反応をするはずなのに。化け物とかお化けとかさ。でもあなたにとってはそういうこともあるで済まされてたわけなんだ。なんかバカみたいね、私。
Her stained face returned to normal for a moment. It hit her there had been another way to handle this without anyone getting hurt. But the damage had already been done. There was no do-overs in life, nor should there be. Her own mistaken assumption had sent the situation spiraling out of control. But now that Soichiro was involved, she had to make sure that her secret was safe with him. Even if there had been another, better option, that ship had sailed. Human and their ship were utterly driven by mutual misunderstandings, like tapestries woven from mismatched intentions. Break time was over. There stood Oko Asaki and Soichiro Shizuki. The first other conversation they had since first meeting had come to an end. Not they had a choice in the matter. It was Jerry murmuring from around the corner that cut it short. Nobody remembers my funeral. My mourners had long since perished. We were born wrong. Life is suffering. Somebody save me. Daddy Mills was just around the corner, visible in the mirrors parallel to it.
悠長に話してる場合じゃないわね。とにかく今は距離を。
In contrast to Oko's elegant blues, the light wore a malicious red.
感動値。
There was a momentary flash of light before she even extended her arm. But the instant she saw the enemy, her dormant feelings that erupted once more.
さっきから邪魔なのよ。
She channeled all of her pent-up anger and shot into her right arm. The fog that filled the corridor was no magical weaving, but rather a barrier of raw energy. It was equivalent to settling a blaze of 3 buckets of gasoline to create a wall of fire and hope it would stop an arrow in flight. If the puppet had attacked it with its arm, it would have pierced through easily, but because it had loose course, this was not of form, the wall of energy repelled the attack. While it was a huge with special energy, it was only means Aoko had to protect herself in that very moment. At first, this prediction was reserved to Aoko alone. So she had his hand to his mouth. But the curse has been weakened to the point where Aoko could no longer feel it. It had plenty of Shiro, who was not a mage. As well as that, the fact that the puppet turned its gaze from Aoko to an unanticipated human behind her. Enraged, she swung her arm forward once again. The blue line formed a wall to block the gun for a scant few seconds. It was therefore opening to exploit. As Aoko was forming the wall, the puppet pointed at the right arm at her face and... Before the rocket of death could be fired, so she scooped her up in her arms. How he mustered the strength to do so was a mystery, but he turned his back into the puppet and took off running. It was a nimble sprinter resembling a deer leaping across obstacles. Toshiro rounded 2 more corners. He ignored whatever complaints Aoko was making, and eventually stopped in the middle of the 2nd floor. He sat her down.
よし、ここまで来れば少しは休めるな。
Sushi's shoulders have been caught as his breath, as light she was running while carrying someone else would make anyone mind it. She looked at him in incomprehension. It made no sense to her. If he had decided to pick her up and run, surely he could have stood up and escaped when he had downed earlier. His words were unfiltered as ever. Though in this moment of fighting for their lives, he lacked someone of his unusual upsetness. Though he may not have turned away because he regretted saying it aloud, his words spoke volumes. For some reason, it pained Aoko to seem like that.
唐突に気分が悪いんだが、あの赤い光も
ええ、魔術の類よ。岩洞打ちって言ってね。北欧の呪詛の一つ。魔術回路のある私には効かないけど。
なんだ、青崎には効かないのか。じゃあ、危ないのはあの腕だけだな。
Okay, no idea why it was relieved, but gritted her teeth and fought down the urge to snap at him. There was no use in yelling at him like this. Above all, she felt that it would have been pity and extreme to voice her annoyance right now.
そうね。注意するのは伸ばしてくる腕だけ。大した相手じゃないわ、やっぱり。
The time, it was not false bravado. Such an enemy would normally be a breeze for Kawasaki, but her shameful negligence had led her to the disruption of her magic curse, making her even less formidable than her enemy. At this point, Aoko had no way of attacking. The only option left her was to wait for it to expend all of her special energy, but this perpetual curse made it non-starter. The schema of check would not end until one of them was dead. She realized that she was the one in the same position that cornered Toshiro earlier. She glanced at her right arm. She could not imagine that how she got into such mess with her magic energy at more than half its capacity. It had its karma for having enjoyed time with Toshiro earlier. She grumbled under her breath as she shifted her focus. shit the fuel for the fire, but not for the igniter. And the killing machine would chase until the end of time if need to be. What she should do next was blindingly clear. She had to get back to normal.
ごめん、考え事してた。確か。よし、合ってる。しずきくん、そこに横道あるのわかる？
Oka pointed out he could see nothing but the walls of the corridor. For one thing, the floor had nothing but left turns. Oka was pointing to the right.
2階は中心まで行くと1階に降りる階段があるんだけど、それは私が壊したから使えないの。けど、ここの作りも意地が悪くてね。よく見れば、右に曲がる通路もあるのよ。あとは注意して探せば、1階の階段までショートカットできる。悪いけど、一人で行って。
Could turn her back into Chiro and started walking the opposite direction of the escape route and down the long corridor towards the popular pursuit.
あいつは無差別だから、ここで壊さないといけない。魔術師は魔術師同士で争うのはいいんだけど、みだりに一般人に手を出しちゃいけないって決まりがあるの。あいつの目的は私のわけだし、結果がどうあれ、すっきりするでしょ。
If Oka won, the puppet would be destroyed. If Oka lost, the objective would be complete and it would shut down. Either way, them going their separate way would mean Soshiro survived. This was what Oka meant. Though she explained that it was events were happening in two totally different people.
運が良ければ入り口までたどり着けるわ。それじゃあ、また明日ね。
Even Soshiro could tell that she was trying to act tough, but she already had disappeared around the corner by the time he fought to stop her.
さて。
Mentally, could bemoaned the disaster she was in. The quality of his puppet was on a completely different level compared to the one from the park 2 days ago. An auto-incarnating perpetual motion machine was a rarity in and of itself, but his puppet was also equipped for battle with his extending arms and Gandhi projecting crystalline eyes. It was first class food that, if put on the market, was sell for hundreds of millions of yen. Also was only factoring this value as an antiquity. For the purpose of combat, it would have made more sense to mobilize a significantly less expensive familiar. To use such a process community as a tool for murder market, this person masters a completely different breed of crazy. Nein, da hat gerade irgendwas übersprungen. Aber vorher gebe ich die Puste aus. Das heißt, ich beende jetzt bei dem Stream für heute. Dann mal adios und vierte.